Hey everyone, a few thoughts on Bitcoin from the last couple days. First off, it's been a wild ride the last 72 hours. Bitcoin has set multiple all-time highs about every other day for a week or two now, and including in the last 72 hours. There was also a big price swing from $74,000 up to, or down to like $66,000, like an $8,000 price swing in a very short period of time. Some of what's happening there, first of all, that is normal with high volatility assets, whether that's Tesla stock or something like that. But also, a lot of people, anytime an asset is rising, especially quickly, there are always some people who try to use leverage to get extra returns, which frankly is stupid, and hopefully nobody watching this would even consider using leverage to trade anything. First of all, you should not be trading Bitcoin in the first place. Bitcoin is not an asset that should be traded. It should be bought and held, or at most spent with the Coinbase Debit Card, but it should not be traded because you're absolutely going to lose if you try to do that. But of course, there are always people that think they can outsmart the market, and they trade with leverage. And leverage means trading not only with their own funds, but with borrowed funds. Well, when you do that, you get higher returns if you guess right. You also get much lower returns if you guess wrong. So, for example, if you're trading with 10 times leverage and you guess right, and you're betting that it's going to go up, then if it goes up 10%, you make 100% return. But if it goes down 10%, you lose all of your money. Conversely, if you are betting with 10 times leverage that it's going to go down, and instead of going down by 10% and making, 10 times your money, instead it goes up 10%, well, then you lose all of your money. So one of the things that makes high volatility assets like Bitcoin go up and down more is people trading with leverage, and that's just, part of what they do. Thankfully, Bitcoin humbles everyone, as I've always said, unless you just buy it and hold on to it, as I've always advocated. It humbles everybody. So what always happens is when there's a big run up, like the run up to $74,000, some people think they're going to get too smart and they start trading with leverage, and they get absolutely just wiped out and liquidated when Bitcoin takes a, $5,000 to $8,000 price dip in 24 hours. And then conversely, when it starts going down and everybody bets it's going to keep going down, they get absolutely wiped out when it starts going back up. So as I'm recording this, Bitcoin is about $70,000 per coin. Again, it was about 74, then it dropped to about 66. Now it's about 70, about at the midpoint. I would guess it just keeps going up. Who knows? What matters is the medium and long term, not the short term. But anyway, all of those leverage traders are getting absolutely wiped out every time that happens, which is good for people like us, because it means the crazy people that are doing wonky trading strategies are getting wiped out, and those are not the people who should be owning Bitcoin anyway. The people who should be owning Bitcoin are not the people who are trying to trade it, but the people who are holding on to it because it is the future monetary system of the world. In addition to this video, I posted a couple links to X. There was a guy explaining why assets that are going up as fast as Bitcoin has been going up are always volatile. They are. It's the nature of it is you can't have an asset that has a CAGR, a compound annual growth rate, averaging 140%. It is impossible to have an asset that is growing an average of 140% per year without extremely high volatility. The two always go together. You never have an extremely high growth asset that is also not very, very high volatility. So Bitcoin is volatile. It will continue to be volatile. As I posted a few minutes ago, all you have to do is zoom out, and you can get some perspective that, it's hilarious that when you look at a 10% price correction in 24 hours, when you zoom out, you realize, oh, that's like a tiny little blip on the radar as compared to the massive price appreciation over the last, 12 to 18 months. So anyway, my prediction certainly here is that things keep going up. I think at least for the next probably 18 months, at any given time, there will be a 80 to 90% probability that things are just keep going up, and always a 10 to 20% probability that things take some significant interim price dip. So that continues to be the case. And for those that have been in Bitcoin a long time, something like a 10% price correction, which obviously is $7,000 on $70,000, that looks like small potatoes to those of us who have been through a couple bear markets where the price corrections were much, much larger than that. And even historically, even in bull markets, which mean up markets, There's even been price corrections historically as big as 20 and 30%. So if 10% over the last 72 hours makes your stomach churn, just realize, that is not only is that normal, but historically the price corrections have been significantly larger than that on the way up because it's Bitcoin's volatility has been much higher in the past than it is now, but it's still a high volatility, high growth asset. So few updates on that. I still get questions from people all the time of, is now still a good time to buy Bitcoin? I still believe a couple things. One, that the probability that there's more upside in the near term, let's say even in the next days or weeks, is always, probably 80 to 90%. The probability that you're going to magically get a lower price by waiting is always probably 10 or 20%. And the problem, of course, with waiting for a price dip is you don't know what a price dip is. For example, in the last 72 hours, I'm sure at 74,000 a coin, people were thinking, I'll wait for a price dip. Then it drips to 73 and they're like, oh, it's going down. I wonder if it'll go down some more. Well, then it, dips to 72, 71, 70. And they're like, wow, if it's gone, dip this much, I'll bet it's going to dip a ton more. And then it dips more and they're like, oh no, maybe something's wrong with Bitcoin. And so they ended up not buying. Or they end up buying and, as soon as it gets to a full 10% or full 15% price correction, then I'm going to buy. And inevitably they never buy. So, in the future, neither you nor anyone else will care what you almost did and the Bitcoin you almost bought and how close you almost got to buying Bitcoin at today's prices. All that will matter is whether you actually pulled the trigger or did not pull the trigger. And if you didn't pull the trigger, well, then you don't benefit. You're not along for the ride. So anyway, I continue to tell everybody who asks, yes, I think now is a fantastic time to buy Bitcoin. I don't see anything that will change that. And at any given time, anytime somebody says, well, should I wait a day or should I watch it for a day or two? Or should I, maybe wait a week or two and see what happens? I'm like, you can, but there's an 80 to 90% chance you're going to miss out on significant upside. And there's a 10 to 20% chance you might buy it cheaper. And you're probably not going to buy it cheaper because if it does get cheaper, you're probably going to freak out and think maybe something's wrong. And you're going to not buy it when it's cheaper anyway because you're going to be sitting there waiting for it to get cheaper than cheap. So everybody who thinks they're going to buy Bitcoin when it's cheaper, inevitably when it does get cheaper, they think they need to wait till it's even cheaper. And then when it starts going back up, then they feel like they missed the cheapest of the cheap. And then they don't want to buy it because they want to wait for another price dip. And they just never buy. These people just never buy. So anyway, that's a few highlights with regard to Bitcoin. There was one other thing I was going to cover that I am not immediately remembering. But if I do remember it, I'll go live again. But that is a few thoughts from tonight on Bitcoin, price corrections, highlights, and a few other things. So happy to answer any questions anyone has. Happy to send anyone free Bitcoin if they're in the mood to start on the Bitcoin journey. And happy to answer any questions in the comments or anything else anyone has. So I'm always here to serve. Extremely bullish on Bitcoin. I think it's the future monetary system of the world. I really don't see anything that would change that. And anyway, and I think it's just it's a whole lot of up from here, even though there will be price corrections along the way. So just FYI, here to serve if there's anything I can do. Thanks.